Hi again, everyone, and welcome to our Wisconsin Signing Day Special 2015. I'm Mike Lucas from UWBadgers.com. I'm joined by Wisconsin head coach Paul Chryst. When you think back to when you were a hotshot quarterback at Platteville High School,
Never was.
and you went through this process, what was it like for you as a player?
It's certainly a big day. I mean, anytime, it signifies the end of one chapter and the start of another, and we're certainly proud of it. I think you had no idea really what you're getting into, but it's a big day.
Has it changed at all for you since you've become a head coach?
The signing day, is still always a day that you're looking to add players to your team, and that part's always exciting, and especially when you go through it, get a feel for the prospects that now sign, and so that they're officially on your team. I think that's always a good day.
Paul, what were some of your challenges in taking over some players who had already verbally committed to Wisconsin while adding some others?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're recruiting and doing it the right way, it's built. A lot of it's built on relationships, and there's certainly some that we've signed today that we had relationships with, and then there's others that you tried to build them in a short period of time. But it's, I thought that's proud of the way the guys, coaches, recruits, kind of all understood the situation and made the most of it. And at the end of the day, you really just want to be happy, and I am. I'm excited about the group that we have, and I think the biggest thing you're looking for is, is this the right fit for them? And I do believe that the guys that signed, Wisconsin's a good fit for them, and do they add value to your team? And I think we've, added guys that will contribute and bring, big value to this team.
You've got a couple of quarterbacks in this class, and I know how much you enjoy working with QBs.
Yeah, and we all know we need quarterbacks, and when you have a good quarterback, you got a chance. And probably that's a little microcosm of what the recruiting was, in Austin, was a guy that had been committed to Wisconsin, and right after he was the first recruit of the committed recruits that I spoke with. And, with him coming at mid-year, he was trying to figure out, what do I do in a short period of time? And so never went out and saw him, but had phone conversations. And then he came to start the second semester, and certainly loved, just when you watch his film, the way he competes, and obviously had a lot of success. And then, Alex Hornibrook was a guy that we'd been recruiting for a long time at Pitt, and been to his house, been to his school, he'd been to our camp, so you knew a lot more. I knew a lot more about Alex, and he too was coming at mid-year. In fact, never took an official visit. It was during a dead period, and his folks came and looked at campus, did the normal campus tour that every other prospective student will do, and never saw him, until he was registered for class. So two different ways, and probably with the quarterbacks, excited to have them both here. I think different skill sets, but like I said, a microcosm of kind of how this recruiting season went.
Both are early enrollees. What's your thought process on athletes who graduate from high school early so they can get a jump start on their college career, both as a student and as an athlete?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why you do it. I mean, you got a chance to get 12 credits and to get acclimated. I think as far as if a guy should do it or not, I think it's so personal. It's really an individual choice, and there's some guys that, that signed today that are in the middle of either wrestling season or basketball season and doing a lot, and that's great. They're still in high school and they should finish that out, or maybe, a couple of them are, real good track athletes, so they're going to want to finish out their senior season that way. But at the same time, there's some that, they're ready for that change, and for those, I think it is a good time to start. So big picture, I think it's really personal choice on whether you should enroll early or not. You're glad when the guys do, and I think, particularly for Austin and Alex, they've got a chance to kind of learn the playbook from the start. It's a little bit harder. They're coming in now in the summer, but still, we've had spring ball, we've had meetings before spring ball. They're kind of picking it up halfway into the season.
And John Dietz, an offensive lineman from in-state, is another one of those players who is on campus right now.
Yeah, and it's been really good. I loved watching him on film. Certainly knew about him, a couple of years back, and to have him here and be able to go through spring ball. You know, I was able to meet his parents for the first time at the All-State banquet, and so that was a little bit different than your normal recruiting process, but glad to have all the guys that came mid-year.
And we'll have more on our recruiting special right after this.
John Dietzen, Seymour High School, offensive lineman. It's been pretty good. I like the layout of college a lot more than high school. I was getting pretty old doing high school, but it's new and it's interesting and I'm enjoying it. I also have some friends that are in-state guys who are getting recruited who have met with Coach Rudolph, and from what I can tell and from what I've heard from them, he's just a real down-to-earth guy, and I think it's going to be a really good fit for the program as well as all the other players. I grew up in Wisconsin, and it's tough not to be a Badger fan when you grow up in Wisconsin, and also the offensive line tradition is just remarkable. It's tough to really beat that being an offensive lineman, especially when you're an in-state guy, so it was a pretty easy choice.
Welcome back to our recruiting special. Everybody puts a priority on in-state recruiting. I know that's very important to you.
It is, and you know, it kind of always has been, and yet it kind of resonated with me again when we were showing the highlight tape. And you know, a lot of times when you're showing recruits coming in, you want to show the greats, and you know, I think the whole thought behind that is you can do something here special, and it's been done before, so you know, put yourself in it. And the number of those guys that were in-state guys, and certainly when Wisconsin's been really good, you know, there's been guys that are, you know, Wisconsin kids that have a big part to do with it, but it's also supplemented with guys from out of state. And I think that's what makes, you know, that's the recipe. And I think that, you know, try to make an emphasis of getting back in the state. I enjoyed it, you know, getting back in the state and you know, finding some guys that certainly are good enough, you know, to be here. And that's not just the scholarship players, you know. I'm excited about the group of walk-ons that we've got. Guys that are really good football players, obviously want to be here, good students. You know, I think for us, if we're going to be as good as we can be, we're going to need to do a great job in state and keeping the, you know, the good players at home. And I think there's good players that use scholarship, and we all know the stories of the walk-ons that have had a huge impact here.
Every program does it a little bit differently. How important are walk-ons at Wisconsin?
I think it's critical. You know, the last Rose Bowl game that I was able to coach in, you know, we had, I think it was 5 walk-ons that, you know, and a couple still were you know, paying for their own way at the time, but I think it's been a huge part of this program, and it goes back a long ways, and hopefully we continue to have it going forward. But I think it's one of the things that can give us a competitive edge, and like I said, I really am excited about the group that we have coming in.
How can you not think of Joe Panos and J.J. Watt and Jared Aberderis in that category?
Yeah, and Jimmy Leonard wasn't bad either. And you know,
yeah,
you go
very
down
good.
the list. You know, Brady Ewing, you know, was one. Ricky Wagner was a walk-on. I mean, there's guys that played a lot of really good football. Ethan Hemer, and then that's going to be, you know, something that, you know, we'd like to see continue, obviously.
What's been your message to the state coaches, the high school coaches in the state of Wisconsin?
You know, I think the message is, and I think you got to do it with your actions, probably, you know, more so than your words, but the state's important. And I think it did help, you know, certainly had previous relationships with a lot of the guys that went and saw, and I think the other ones, you know, there was a connection somewhere or another. But I think, you know, you've got to show in your actions that it is important to you. And I think that, you know, for Wisconsin to be as it can be, good as it can be, we're going to need to be great in this state recruiting, and great with the coaches. There's some really good football coaches, and you know, Wisconsin high school football, even Wisconsin youth football. If football is big and good in this state, that will only help us at the university.
Paul, when you take a look at this class, have you addressed your most pressing needs?
I think that's a little bit tricky in the sense that it's not like the draft where you can dictate who you're going to take, you know. And I think that for us, first and foremost, is this guy good enough, and is it the right fit? And at each position, you've got to kind of manage the number of spots. You know, we've got a on our master recruiting board, master roster sheet. You know, we want to have 5 quarterbacks, which typically means you're going to take 1 every year. If someone leaves, there might be a void. You know, offensive line, you'd like to have 15. You know, and you can't just sign a huge class and also the next one, but you'd like to try to manage it, and certainly we're coming in where the roster's set up a little bit different. You also have to go with what's available, you know, and the best ones. Just because you may need something at one position, if you don't have the right guys that are the right fit, I think you can make a mistake in just going by position. There's no doubt in my mind that we've got some guys in this class that will help us. And some, as we all know, will help us earlier. May not be the best player at the end that's going to help us early, but you know, that's the fun thing about it. We don't really, you know, as excited as you are and as much as you think you know this class, there's going to be some surprises, and hopefully they're all good surprises.
Well, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good working with you again.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's fun.
We'll come back with much more. We'll hear from Dave Aranda. We'll hear from Joe Rudolph as our recruiting special continues.
I'm Alex Honeybrook from Malvern Prep, and I play quarterback. It's actually been a pretty easy transition. I thought it'd be a little tougher, but we have a lot of advisors and people like that who help us out, and they set up our schedules pretty well, and everything's been going pretty smoothly. Once I got offered by Wisconsin, I kind of knew I wanted to come here. It's the perfect place for a college football player. It's everything you could dream of, playing in front of Camp Randall and all that. I know it's a great atmosphere, a great town, and when I visited here, I fell in love with the city, and I like the campus too. So he's got a great track record, and he's an awesome coach, and I think beyond that, he's even a better guy. When I spent time with him out at Pitt, just visiting and talking to him, he was one of the most personable coaches I've met. He's like a family to me, and he's just a great guy, and I definitely want to play for him in the system. I think the strengths I have are probably accuracy, and then everything from the mental side of the game, just knowing where I want to go with the ball, reading defenses and everything like that.
Welcome back to our recruiting special. I'm joined now by offensive coordinator Joe Rudolph. Rudy, do you have some priorities going into this recruiting season?
Well, I think the big thing was for us coming in was getting to know the guys and making sure that you have the right fits, and it was exciting. It was exciting to go out, and these guys were truly fun to be around them and their families. And I think the idea was to really try to, ensure the depth across the offense, so you'll see offensive line. I think running back was a big priority. Brought in a receiver, brought in 2 tight ends. That was the emphasis. Make sure that our depth is solid, moving up and along a quarterback, and really make sure guys that'll have a chance to compete, but guys that will continue to develop in the program.
I know you all rely so heavily on building relationships. You really didn't have that luxury with the way this all played itself out.
Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult, with the change, and I think you got to do your best to take advantage of the time, and then you can't, I think you have to be pretty directed in making sure that you do have those fits and taking that time to get to know them and visit the schools and talk to the teachers and go to the house, and I think all those things come into a factor. So we had to do it in a short period of time, but it was good. You
played here, you coached here, you know what it takes to win here. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you do look for a profile of guys that either you played with or been around, or guys that you've brought in that have done well or have had a chance to coach. So I think you have great confidence in that.
Without getting too complicated, what's the profile you look for in an athlete that can come to this school and be successful?
Well, I think the goal of guys you want to bring in are guys that are going to be great players at Wisconsin. That's it. And there's a lot that goes into it. It's funny, there's a lot of different factors, but they're guys that work their tails off. Everyone's got a certain amount of ability, but the guys that maximize it and truly, experience all that potential are the ones that usually do pretty well here. So they're smart, they're tough, they work their tails off. Obviously, they're talented, or we wouldn't be there in the first place.
I asked Paul to reflect on his days, that specific day when he signed to come to Wisconsin. You coming here from Pennsylvania, do you remember those moments?
Yeah, I do. It was far, you know, and my mom hadn't been up here yet, but we were excited. We were excited about the potential. We were excited about the picture that Barry painted about what we can do here. And all he asked was, you know, is football going to be important to you? Are you going to work your tail off? You know, are you tough? And I could say yeah to those three things. So I felt good about it.
And now you're working from your own easel and your own picture. You're painting your own type of picture on that canvas, aren't you?
Yeah, I think being able to impact this place is, you know, you're passionate about it and you love it, and you've loved your time being here, and you've loved the time following it when you've been away, and the chance to continue to impact that is a blessing.
We'll talk about some of those offensive recruits when we come back, and our recruiting special continues.
Austin Defenses, Jordan High School, Salt Lake City, Utah, quarterback. I felt like it was just the best place for me and best fit, and when I came out here, it kind of gave me the home feeling, you know, everyone gets. It's just like kind of on the inside, you feel like this is the place to go, and even with the coach leaving, I still felt like this was the place that I needed to be and the place that would help me out. And everything that's going on up here is good and positive, and I wanted to be part of what's going to come out of this great university. I felt really excited, actually, just because of the success he's had offensively speaking the past couple of years. You know, all the way back to Russell Wilson, even here, they did a tremendous job, and they're really explosive offensively, and I felt like this is the place to be. So I'm excited, and I feel good about my decision. I feel like I can use my footwork and kind of get around in the pocket and find the open receivers and find the windows that you need to throw in, and just kind of use your feet to buy more time in the pocket if you need it to deliver the balls to the receivers and the playmakers that are going to go down and score touchdowns. So I feel like that's definitely something that I have on my game, but I want to get better and improve on everything. So I wouldn't say that it's my strength really, just because I mean, you can get better in anything.
Our recruiting special continues with offensive coordinator Joe Rudolph. You play the O-line here. You're all Big Ten. What were you looking for in some of the recruits, and what do you have in those three prospects who have signed?
I think the thing you're always looking for in the O-line is you got to have toughness. I think your leadership and your work ethic, that has to come from that group in the lines. So that's got to be first and foremost. Then you want to find big giant men that fill that role, that are strong and smart. And I think you found that in this group. It's been really good getting to know that group, and it's been good kind of knowing that they feel strongly about those attributes.
Rudy, did you recruit knowing that numbers are a little bit down with the O-line?
Yeah, it's a little bit on the young end. You know, you lose three really outstanding players, guys that truly epitomize those characteristics, and so you got to replace them. And we got a couple guys that are you know, figures that'll be back in there, which you're excited about, and you got some young guys that you got to develop, and adding to those numbers is going to be big.
Let's talk about the tight ends in this recruiting class, because I know that's one of your specialties. You've coached that position group.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think those two guys play off each other characteristic-wise. You know, David's a he's a big guy that can run, and he plays a lot of quarterback on his tape, but he can catch the ball, and you know, excited about him. And then Kyle, who's here already. Kyle is he's a route runner, but not afraid to stick his nose in there. So I think those two will complement each other well.
How much of an advantage will it be for Kyle Peniston to be here for spring ball?
I think it's big. I think with him, John Dietzen will be here. I think for those guys to jump in and experience it, you know, you never want to tell someone don't enjoy your senior year. If you have any reservations, enjoy your senior ones. But the guys that come in, I think, usually know from an early point that this is what I want to do. I want to jump in there, and it definitely benefits them. It gives them the opportunity to hit the field.
And we were talking about position groups that were a little bit down in numbers. Wide receiver has been a source of concern at times. with this program. How do you feel you dealt with that?
Well, I felt great about Andrew coming in. You know, I really like his film. I like the way he competes. He obviously has track numbers to back up speed, and I think he'll have a real chance, you know, to come in and kind of see where he's at. He'll get here in the fall, but I'm excited about him.
Everybody who's a Badger fan loves running backs.
Yeah.
You love running backs. You blocked for some pretty good ones.
No question.
There are two special ones that would appear in this class.
Yeah, you know, and I think when you look at Jordan Stevenson, you see an explosive back, speed, and athleticism, but getting to know him, a real competitiveness and a real drive, and that's a good combination to have. Bradrick Shaw, I think, will take on that epitome of that big back. I think it's in his frame to get that way, and shows a lot of explosiveness with it.
Have you found that group of players, tailbacks, are able to make that jump a little bit quicker than maybe other positions, or not?
From a playing standpoint?
Yeah, from high school to college. How big is that divide?
Well, you know what? I think you're right. I think it is one of the positions. You know, a guy gets the ball in his hands. You know, Coach Brown will give him some pointers, but a lot of that is some of it that's innate, and it comes out. And they have made a transition a little bit faster, and one of those guys could.
One final thing with you. What do you expect out of your two freshman quarterbacks during the spring?
I expect great competition from those two. I've enjoyed, they're here already, so seeing those guys get along and compete and get out and anxious to, you know, organize things and get throwing. That's what you want to see them. Want to see them absorb everything and attack it and just compete.
And they're a little bit different, too. They seemingly would complement each other.
Yeah, there's no question. I think they are different, and they will complement each other from their physical attributes, but I think, like, their mental makeup, they have a lot of similarities, which I think it'll help them in growing together. What
excites you the most about this overall group?
The whole class?
Yeah.
I just think that's it. I think that you did cover all bases. I think it's a group that they'll cherish the opportunity they have here. They'll work together. I think they'll be close. And when you have those things, especially with guys coming from different parts of the country, if they will stay close and that group will grow together, they got a chance to be a special group.
Rudy, welcome back home.
Appreciate it. Thank
you very much.
Rudolph's
been my guest. We'll have more on the recruiting special right after this.
I'm Kyle Peniston. I'm from Mater High School in Santa Ana, California, and I play tight end. There's been a lot of acclimating coming from the high school level to the college level. Obviously classes get harder, the weightlifting gets a lot harder, the running gets harder. The second I stepped foot in Madison, I was a little kid. I mean, I just remember coming back to Wisconsin like every single year. My parents have family here, so we've been back here. It's just, I love the state of Wisconsin, and academically it was a great fit. Athletically, obviously it's a great fit.
Looking, throws in zone, Arneson, got it! There's the signal, touchdown Wisconsin!
You hear it all the time. I mean, I think this is tight end U. Just all the guys go to the Pro Bowls, all the guys are all pro. So they're big shoes, really big shoes to fill, but I think it'll be a fun challenge. I mean, it's always fun to push it off to the max and see what you can get out. It's exciting because this is what every kid dreams of. Dream of playing college ball, and now you're here, so it's just exciting. I think the adrenaline's just kind of keeping me going every day.
Joining me now on our Wisconsin recruiting special is defensive coordinator Dave Aranda. Dave, going into year 3 with your defense, with your particular scheme, did that affect the way you recruited at all this season?
It did. You know, we're trying to get as fast as we can, and so we're trying to get as big as we can on the inside, fast as we can on the outside. That's what we would like to build to. I think we had some success in that area.
I'm sure number 1 on your list was inside linebacker because of the graduation losses of Marcus Trotter and Derek Landish.
Yeah, there's the 4 seniors leaving is a big hit, and so we do have a redshirt freshman in the program. We do have 3 freshmen that are coming in that we're expecting to play. So it's a great challenge for myself. It's a great challenge for the kids in the program that just joined the program. And that'll be an ongoing challenge, which I'm excited to meet.
Dave, when you look at a player, a linebacker, are you targeting him for either outside or inside, or you look at guys who can play both?
We try to be able to make a break in terms of your outside linebacker with the length and speed and range that's needed to not only rush but drop. And then at inside linebacker, we're looking for a guy with change of direction, instincts. He's going to be a blitzer about 50% of the time as well. I think Derek Landish, the Chris Borlands, obviously if you had a bunch of those guys, you'd be in good shape.
So if you find a high school safety who maybe doesn't fill that bill, that role as well as you want, he's always a candidate for linebacker. Is that how it works, the domino effect?
Very much so. I think our field outside linebacker, Joe Schobert, currently plays that position, is kind of the prototype for that. I think if you recruit the field outside backer, which is a linebacker safety hybrid, you get more of those athletes in the field as they grow and training table and everything else. There's always potential for them to move to the bench outside backer where Vince Biegel plays. So the more speed on the field, the better. I think sometimes you recruit those bench outside backers, those bigger outside backers, you're helping Noakes and the D-line and everything else, so you try to keep the linebackers a linebacker.
I've always been under the impression that the toughest position group to recruit, to project, is the D-line. Is that fair or not to say?
It is. I think, you know, with what we do, it is so predicated on who we have. I think and we've got a few stout guys this year in this year's class, which you're going to love playing the run with those guys. If we're able to get some long, leaner, smaller guys, then we'll be on edges more and stunt and blitz more, pretty similar to what we did this past year. I think we'd like to be able to find a happy medium between all the stunt and blitzing and kind of sitting up in gaps and playing the run. I think we can do that with this class.
What was the challenge for you in trying to retain some of those early commitments?
It's always a challenge. I think, you know, the break from recruiting is what is tough, is that when the group of coaches are coming in and guys are signing contracts and we're all ready to roll to go, you've got, what, 3 weeks to meet everybody and 3 weeks to build relationships that you built a year previous. And so, well, we were successful in that area with some and not so much in others.
If you could give me just a short overview of the players you got on defense, how would you put it?
I'm happy with it. I'm excited about especially the outside backer and linebacker position, you know, inside linebacker position. We needed some depth at the outside backer spot. I think we have that. We needed players at the inside linebacker position sooner rather than later, and I think we got that too.
And we'll come back and talk about some of those individuals as our signing day special continues right after this.
Nick Thomas, IMG Academy out of Bradenton, Florida, linebacker. So Wisconsin was my first offer. I chose Wisconsin in the end. I just felt like it was at home and family atmosphere, and I liked the coaches. Coach Aranda was a great guy and knowledgeable. So Coach Aranda and I just clicked right away, I guess, the first time we met and the first time we talked. We kind of have similar personalities, similar defensive mindset, and his success on the field is because of how knowledgeable he is. And I wanted to go to a place where I could learn from my defensive coach all my years in college, not learn the first year and then coast the rest of the way. I wanted to continue to learn and progress as a linebacker, so that's why I stuck with Coach Aranda. I see myself as Chris Borland. I remember watching him when he played he was one of my idols, and then this year watching him, he went to the 49ers, one of my favorite pro teams, and so he did a good job there, and I don't know, just a big fan of his.
Welcome back to our recruiting special. Dave, let's get specific about some of those linebackers. Let's start inside.
Well, Nick Thomas gives us the ability to play inside linebacker, both in a run and react mode where he's instinctive and can play the run two gap if needed, but he's also a great athlete. We can blitz him. He can win one-on-ones versus guards. He can win one-on-one versus running backs. And so he's a great asset in that respect. And I think the other inside backers in the class also have that ability, whether it's Ingold or whether it's Chris Orr. Both of those guys are both athletic. One was a quarterback, the other was a very active outside linebacker. They were moving inside, that have the instincts, can play man-to-man on a running back on third down, can blitz, be effective in that respect. And so I'm excited about that inside linebacker group.
What kind of advantage can it be for Nick Thomas to go through the spring with you?
Very much so. I think there is a little bit of a race to see what we've got at the inside backer position. You know, there's the 1 and 2 groups are filled up with guys that have just signed on. And so it's a very unique situation. It's first I've been in this role, and like I say, I'm excited to attack it. I know that Nick feels very fortunate to be here, and we're fortunate to have him and have this time to be able to try to get a head start and all that.
And even though you have some quality performers returning on the outside, didn't stop you from adding to that list.
No, we needed it. You know, I think we're a year away of really having to fill some shoes there, and you're so excited about what Joe has done and Vince has done, but to have a guy that can be under those guys and learn from them, and then, you know, like I say, Zach, for example, with his length and his ability to run and cover and blitz, again, another quarterback, the best athlete in his school, and we can put him at that outside backer spot and really let him rush the passer, let him cover in the flats, and feel very comfortable with Joe as a mentor.
Dave, you signed one defensive lineman. What are your expectations for him?
Very, very similar in terms of building depth at the defensive line. I think the D-line, we do have some young guys in the class that are building and rising up through the ranks, and I think at the D-line position, right, whether it's Olive, you know, we got Craig Howe, both of those guys want to be able to learn and grow in that spot, and then get groomed, really get stronger, learn the defense to where we can play those guys a year or so from now. And, you know, they are extremely excited about joining the Badgers.
Yeah, that was my bad. I didn't want to shortchange you. You're bringing in 2 defensive linemen as freshmen. Now let's look into the secondary. Serge Trezzi physically looks a little bit more mature than some of the incoming freshmen. Would you agree?
Yeah, Serge is. We're ready. Serge is here now, and so he's meeting up with our DB coach and meeting with me, and he's excited to get going. I'm so, you know, Serge has got great length on him. He's got great speed. You know, his want-to is tremendous, and so there's a lot of avenues we can go down with Serge, and spring will be good to kind of narrow down those avenues, whether it's a corner or safety. We're going to start him at corner and see what he can do in that role, and so we're excited about everything that Serge brings. And then Titus Booker is the other corner that's coming in, and you know, Titus played running back in high school, and the length that Titus has, just the pure speed that he has, really I would see Titus as being the prototypical corner that we'd like to be able to bring in here.
Is there any player that has been under the radar and you feel like, I don't want to use the tag sleeper, but might exceed maybe people's expectations as of now?
I would look right at Alec Ingle, I look at Zach Bond, the 2 of the local products, and just they both have a mentality that's of a winner, and they're both very, very athletic, and so they will have every opportunity to come in and show what they got. I
know you won't know for a couple of years, but do you feel like you've addressed your needs with this class? Very much so. I think at D-line, I think we do have some depth. We wanted some guys that can come on in and learn and grow in that role, and I think we did that. Inside linebacker spot was a high need, and we were able to bring in some inside linebackers. Outside backers were a year away of really needing guys to step in, and so there's some guys that can grow in that spot. And I think at the DB spot, we wanted to get longer and we wanted to get faster, and I thought we were able to do that. Dave, look forward to spring football with you.
All right, thank you.
Dave Aranda has been my guest. We'll come back with Matt Lepay, the voice of the Badgers, right after this on our recruiting special.
Serge Trezzi, Eastern Arizona College. I played DB. But I picked Wisconsin because when I came for the visit, it was like a great environment. You know, I feel like this is the place where I have to be at, not only sport-wise, but education also. But I'm really an offensive player. I play running back throughout younger league all the way to high school, and I did 1 year playing running back at a junior college. So really, the ball always been in my hand since I've been playing football. So I gotta try something new. As soon as the ball touch your head, it's a quick instant. You gotta react fast. So it ain't no time to think. The ball in your hand now, ain't no time to second guess nothing. You just gotta do what you gotta do with it.
I'm joined now by the voice of the Badgers, Matt Lepay. We're not going to break down every prospect in this class. I think it's easier for both you and me to talk about people we know, starting with Paul Chryst.
I think this whole recruiting process, I know you've talked with a lot of those guys about when you transition, it's hit the ground running and it's very difficult. They're playing catch up, you could say, in recruiting. But when you have guys led by Paul Chryst, when you have Joe Rudolph and all the other guys with Wisconsin connections, that has to make the transition more manageable. I don't want to say easy, but manageable, because they're very believable because they've been here, done that at the University of Wisconsin. So when they're trying to maintain the recruits or maybe find some guys who they think are great fits here who weren't looked at maybe by Coach Anderson and his staff, they know what they're talking about. They've been here. They know what the University of Wisconsin is all about. And I think that probably, at least to some extent, offset the time crunch that those guys were in.
Yeah, in the short time that Paul has been back in this role, this new role here at least as a head coach, I think he's gotten his message out to the high school coaches throughout the state. At least that's the vibe I've gotten. The response has been very positive.
And history tells us that is critical, a critical component to Wisconsin's success, to see the number of scholarship recruits from the state of Wisconsin and a number of other walk-ons. You don't have to be an overly knowledgeable Badger fan to know the history of how walk-ons, how successful so many of them have been through the years. There is something about an in-state kid playing for his home state school. That's not to say that you forget the other parts of the country. You certainly don't do that. History also tells us they found a lot of stars from either the East Coast or out west, down south, whatever the case may be. But when you just look at recent history, let's just take the wide receiver position, for instance. Some of the better receivers in recent years: Luke Swan, Nick Toon, Jared Abradaris. This team this year, Jordan Frederick has carved a nice niche for what he does in this offense. Alex Erickson from Darlington caught over 50 passes this season. That's good. And that's just one example, one position group where for the Wisconsin guy growing up, it just means a little something more to play here. And it's great to see Paul and his staff embrace what they know and how good these Wisconsin players could be, regardless how many stars are attached to their name.
And I know we tend to talk a lot about the walk-on program here at Wisconsin, and that's really a foreign concept to some programs, but certainly not here. And in mentioning the wide receivers that you did, 2 out of the 3 were walk-ons.
Yeah, absolutely. And the walk-ons who had, Luke Swan had some injuries when he was trying out in the NFL, but had he stayed healthy, he'd probably still be in the NFL. Jared Abradaris is going to come back from an injury, and hopefully for him, hopefully for the Green Bay Packers' sake, that he's going to have a very long and productive career ahead of him. There's a long list. As a matter of fact, it's on a wall outside the locker room of walk-ons at Wisconsin who have turned out to be very successful, not just at the college level, but at the professional level. So, again, we all know what that means, what that has meant in past years, and who knows who that guy or multiple players will be who are invited walk-ons now. Who knows how many of those guys are going to be very important players down the road.
And I frequently use the word continuity in terms of Dave Aranda and his defense, because he brought an entirely different scheme to Wisconsin as the Badgers moved from a 4-3 to a 3-4. And so that's why I think it's so important that Dave was retained by Paul, and now you have more continuity with the defense. And there's a domino effect on the types of players you are looking at and you can recruit and sign.
Yeah, and speed is what they have talked about, what they have needed these last few years. That continues to be the case. We've watched the growth of it. We've seen a defense that really has shown a lot of versatility. You get conferences, and I talked to Paul about this when he first arrived here, came back as the head coach. It's pretty hard to label a conference anymore as just being one thing. I think the Big Ten, there's great variety in the types of offenses that you face, and I think what Coach Aranda and his staff have tried to do and will continue to do is be able to play against those multiple offenses, be good against a team that runs a lot of power, be good against a team that maybe is more finesse. He's on a pretty good path to be able to do that. It's going to be fun to watch him continue to do that.
And with Joe Rudolph as his offensive coordinator, you have another coach who gets it. He gets what the Wisconsin experience is all about.
And he gets what works here, the ability to be able to run power football. Yet it's not all run. We've seen that here, the ability to hurt opposing defenses with the passing game, developing wide receivers. Whatever kind of offense you're running, though, it starts with this offensive line, and we've seen the best. Ironically enough, the best Badger offenses have had really good offensive linemen, and Joe was a part of it, and he's been a part of coaching it, and it's going to be fun to see him back here doing it again.
And I think we're all anxious too about another position group, the tight ends, because we know how integral they are to the Paul Chryst offensive system?
Well, you know, and you look at Paul Chryst and you look at what this team did this past season with guys like Sam Arneson and the kind of year that he had, and now they have to fill that void. Who's going to be that next guy who's going to catch a lot of, not just a lot of passes, but big passes for big first downs, for touchdowns. You know, recent years, Jacob Pedersen, the list goes on, the importance of that position. And it's fun to see that people talk about, you know, in certain offenses, the tight end position becomes extinct, the fullback position becomes extinct. Not here. It's pretty good, and it's been a position where they've had a lot of guys who have brought a lot to the table.
And no matter how much time you put into recruiting, a lot or not much at all, today is a first step in building the next chapter of Wisconsin football.
It is, and and I think you've talked about this with some of the staff. You all hope for the best. They're getting the guys who they've targeted. That's how they would view how good they think this recruiting class will be. We'll find out in a couple of 3 years how good it will be. But I think what's of comfort to the two of us, I think I can speak for both of us and Badger fans out there, is that you have guys on this staff who have been here, they know what it takes, they understand, not just to play the game, but to go through school, to earn your degree. They know how things work here. And I think that's going to make, it gives them every chance to have a lot more hits than misses in the world of recruiting. We'll find out in a couple years about this class, but I think there's reason to be optimistic.
Yeah, we can get past today and get ready for spring ball.
Soon
That's how it works, doesn't
Absolutely. April 25th, spring game. Let's go.
For Matt Lepay, I'm Mike Lucas. Thank you very much for watching Wisconsin's Recruiting Special.